Welcome to Real Talk with Father John. This is Father John Higgins, your host. I am a Catholic priest in ministry as a pastor of a large parish near Los Angeles. We discuss Catholic topics and invite you to participate by praying with us now. Let's bow our heads for a moment in silent prayer. And now we say together, glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Blessings to all our listeners today, especially those who are in need of our prayers and God's mercy and love. I'll be right here on the air every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Well, we're on Tuesday, June the 18th, and it's a beautiful evening in sunny Southern California. It's nice and warm, but not too hot. Southern California has been very nice during the summers recently. So welcome to everybody tonight. We're going to be talking about Catholic annulments, but before we do that, we're going to have to understand what Catholic marriage is. Before we get to either one, I'd like to give the phone number to call in if you have questions or comments. It's 562-217-4799. That's 562-217-4799. Before we get into Catholic annulments and marriage, it would be good for us to start reading the gospel for the upcoming Sunday. I run a men's prayer group, and we do that every time we meet on Monday evenings, and I've been doing that for years with another prayer group that I had on Friday evenings. So let's listen as we look into next Sunday's gospel, a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Once when Jesus was praying in solitude and his disciples were with him, he asked them, "Who did the crowd say that I am?" They said in reply, "John the Baptist. Others, Elijah. Still others, one of the ancient prophets has arisen." Then he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter said in reply, "The Christ of God." He rebuked them and directed them not to tell this to anyone. He said, "The Son of Man must suffer greatly and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed on the third day, and be killed, and on third day be raised." Then he said to all, "If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it." The gospel of our Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. The gospel this evening, Jesus is with his disciples and asks, who did the crowd say that I am? I don't think he's so much interested in what people think as what they are starting to understand. And then he asks, who do you say that I am? And I think that's a good question for each and every one of us as we look into our relationship with Christ. Who do we think that he is? Do we think of Jesus as the gentle Savior, as the all-powerful God? What is our image of Christ, and has it changed over the years? I think it's natural for it to change. I think most of us probably thought of Jesus with the little lambs as children. I know I did. As I grew older, I thought of Jesus in this way or that way, as a close friend, as the Almighty God, the eternal Judge, as sacrificial lamb on the cross, as servant Savior, as many different things, King of creation. We could all think of our images of Christ, and who do we say that he is? Or do we say anything? Do we keep it silent? Do we take our religion and stuff it into a little section in our lives? I think if you're listening to my program this evening, you're probably not one of those who stuffs your religion away and only pays attention to it on Sundays, because after all, this is Tuesday and you're listening. So you're not one of those folks who just goes to Mass on Sunday or goes to church at a Protestant congregation and then forgets about religion. Jesus challenges them when Peter says, "You are the Christ." He challenges them that if they want to follow him, they must take up their cross daily. Now notice he doesn't say, "Put up with your cross." He says, "Take up your cross." And that's an active looking at your cross in your life and saying, "I am going to take this." What does that mean? I think it's taking the cross and using it in service for others. It's not being proud in the negative sense, it's being proud in the positive sense that we can be servants of Christ. I think I told you that my mom died of cancer in 1978. I had a wonderful experience during her her days of in the hospital. And I had an experience of a woman who was taking up her cross. First, it was not my mom. It became that later. One afternoon, I was sitting in her hospital room, and she was very, very depressed and sad, a little angry about her cancer, and she was a little grouchy. People become grouchy sometimes when they're in pain. Her wig wasn't fitting right. She was completely bald. She was embarrassed about how she looked. And I didn't really know what to say. I was in the seminary at the time, and I didn't know what to say to her. I just was there. And a woman appeared at the door and said, "I'd like to talk to, is this Mrs. Higgins?" I said, "No, her last name is Thompson. She's married to my stepdad." She said, "Is it all right if I speak with Mrs. Thompson?" And I said, "You know, this is not a good time." I thought maybe she was some person who wanted to interview her for some reason. And I said, "She's got cancer and she's just not in a good mood right now." The woman pulled off her wig and she was completely bald too. She says, "I know how she feels." I said, "Okay, time for me to go." My mom was surprised. I went down to the cafeteria and got a cup of coffee or something to eat, and about an hour later I came up to find my mom and her hugging and crying. It took a woman who had a cross, the cross of cancer, to relate to my mom. And it really was a healing and wonderful experience for my mom, that a woman understood what was happening to her. That my mom could talk with me, she could talk with my stepdad, she could talk to the doctors and nurses. Nobody really understood like this woman, who was willing to pull off her own wig in public and show her own cross, her own weakness to my mom. And she could relate with my mom. I think that's what Jesus means by taking up our cross. So if we look into our lives, what are our crosses? What is the major cross in our life? Is our cross, well, I'm not going to guess at what your cross is. If you'd like to share what your cross is, you can call in. If you'd like to ask a question about that, that's fine too. But we're going to be talking a little bit this evening about our cross, and maybe our cross is that we've been divorced and we need to know what to do. If you'd like to call in, please call 562-217-4799. I heard a story one time on the West Wing. There was a conversation between two guys. There was one who was a recovering alcoholic, and I'm a recovering alcoholic myself. So I perk up when he would talk on the show. And he was talking to, I think it was the president, I'm not sure, it was a long time ago, and he told a little story. He said there was a man who was walking down the street not paying attention, and he fell into a hole. He couldn't get out of the hole. He was brushing himself off, but he still couldn't get out of the hole. He tried jumping up and trying to grab the edge, but he couldn't reach it. So he looks, and there walks by a priest. He says, "Hey, Father, Father." The priest glances over and walks. And he says, "What's wrong?" And he says, "I've fallen into the hole. Can you help me out?" And the priest says, "May Almighty God bless you in your hole climbing, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit," and walks away. He says, "That didn't do me any good." So he waits for a little while longer, and a doctor passes by. He says, hey, Doc, I need some help." Doc walks over, and he says, "What's wrong?" He says, "I've fallen in this hole. I can't get out." He says, "Well, here's a prescription for hole climbing. Here it is. Go ahead." And he walks off. He says, "That didn't help." A little while later, he sees a man that he knows named Joe, and Joe walks by. He says, "Hey, Joe, help." Joe walks over, and he says, "What's up?" And he says, "I've fallen into this hole, and I can't get out." And Joe jumps down into the hole with him, and he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I've been in this hole. I know the way out." Sometimes we need to jump down into the hole with other people and show them our cross, show them our weakness, get with them in their suffering, in whatever is happening to them in their lives, and become one with them so that we can help them out of their hole. And sometimes we can't help them out. They're going to refuse our help. They're going to say, "No, I can do it myself." They're going to say, "I don't have a problem. I'm not really in a hole. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. Leave me alone." And sometimes we have to just back off a little bit and wait until they need us. What are our crosses in life? I can tell you one of mine is being an alcoholic. It's a cross in my life, and it's a wonderful cross. I'm really glad, and it might sound strange to you for the first time, but I'm really glad that I am an alcoholic in recovery. I don't want to be a drunk alcoholic. But it's because of my own alcoholism that it's very hard for me to be judgmental about others who are in sin or in situations. It's very hard for me to look at somebody and say, "How could you ever do that and call yourself a Christian?" Because I called myself a Christian, I called myself a priest lots of times when I was drunk. It keeps me from getting proud. It's that thorn in my side like Paul talks about. I think that's taking up my cross in a positive way. and looking into what Jesus would have me do with my cross and my relationship with him and in service to others. Using my cross not to brag about how many years that I've been sober, it really doesn't make any difference because I'm only sober for the amount of time that I'm alive right now. So we're going to be talking a little bit about annulments in a minute, and maybe that's one of your crosses, that you're married or you're in a bad relationship or you're divorced and you don't know what to do. Or maybe you're contemplating marriage and don't know what the Catholic Church asks of you in preparation for marriage. What is a true Catholic marriage, and what do you do if you've been divorced and you need an annulment? Those kinds of things we're going to talk about in prayer. If you'd like to call anonymously, that's fine. You can call in and use a fake name. You can call and say that your name is Bobo, whatever you'd like, 562-217-4799. And please do call in if you've got a question or a comment, or you'd like to tell a little story and ask for some advice. So we'll be talking about marriage and annulments when we return. God bless you, and I hope that your evening is wonderful and that you do have a couple of questions for me, because that's the bread and butter really of our show, is responding to what you need and what your questions are. And I really enjoy doing that. So please do call 562-217-4799.
Don't let the opportunity of a lifetime pass you by. We at Today's Realty and Loans are here to make your dreams become a reality. Rates are at a record low. Now is the time to act. Call us at 562-862-0777. Free pre-approvals and credit report when you mention Father John. Today's Realty and Loans is here to simplify the buying and selling process. Please call us at 562-862-0777. And don't forget to ask about our no closing cost loans. Lo podemos ayudar en su propio idioma para compra y venta de propiedades y refinanciamientos.
Juice, I heard you were at a party the other day and the DJ completely destroyed the party.
That's right, Pac-Man. I was checking out his skills. They were not there. Didn't know how to MC. Lighting sucked. And guess what? There was cables showing everywhere. What up with that?
You know what, man? Cable management is really important. And when a DJ can't talk on the mic, what's the point? A DJ really has to know how to rock the party.
He needs to MC. He needs to take control of the party. So, folks, listen closely. If you're in the market for a DJ, if you have an upcoming wedding, quinceañera, birthday party, any kind of an event where the DJ will make the difference, make sure to check us out, escevents.com.
Computer repair done right. Have a virus? Is your computer too slow? Call us at 562-381-2702. Let our team handle it. We can get your computer back to normal, and with our $19.99 optimization package, your computer will be better than ever. Call 562-381-2702 or visit our website, pcsmartteam.com. Hey Juice, when was the last time you went swimming at a friend's house?
Just the other day. Why? What's up?
Well, the other day I went to my friend's house to go swimming, but it was all green, man.
Oh, I know exactly what you need. You need to go talk to my friend Chris Anderson over at Chris Anderson Pool and Spa. He can help you out with algae, filter problems, weekly cleanings, pretty much anything to do with pools and spas.
What's that number, bro?
Give him a call at 310-500-7439. Again, the number is 310-500-7439. Hey, Pac-Man, I've got a big problem. This weekend is my brother's prom, but we can't afford to buy him a tux.
What you need to do is go see my friend over at Downey Rent-A-Tux. They've got great deals on a huge variety of outfits. Anytime I DJ a wedding or a quince, I go to Downey Rent-A-Tux and always get hooked up. So go check them out and mention Emix Radio and they'll hook you up too.
That sounds perfect. Where can I find them?
Go check them out at gotorent2tux.com. That is go, the number 2, rent-a-tux.com.
Poor Ben is only 20 years old, but has the spine of a 70-year-old man. Ben tried medicine, acupuncture, physical therapy, and even other chiropractors. Now Ben, after only 6 weeks of care, is almost pain-free and is going back to the gym. A chiropractor is like a surgeon. You need to research and get references to see if they have a good set of hands. At the chiropractic office of Dr. Mariscal, we cater to everyone. And remember, by appointment or by chance. We're always glad to see you back. To set up an appointment, go to drmariscal.com.
Dr. Mariscal, I need to see him tomorrow. He's a member of my prayer group also, and he fixes me up as a chiropractor every once in a while, and it's very, very good. He helps me keep walking. We're talking about annulments in the Catholic Church this evening. If you've got a question or a comment, the phone number here is 562-217-4799. Before we talk about annulments, we have to know what a Catholic marriage truly is. People will think, I've actually been asked, Father, I'd like to get married in the church, but how expensive is it? And I'll tell them it's free. Marriage in the Catholic Church is a sacrament. And when we talk about marriage, we're not talking about the marriage and the reception and the decorations. We're talking about marriage. Matrimony is a wonderful word to use when talking about marriage because it talks about making a mother, matrimony. Marriage is a more modern term. But what is required in order to get married in the Catholic Church? First, people need to be adults. We don't marry children. I guess they used to, but I doubt that those marriages were valid in the Catholic Church, even if they were done by a priest, a bishop, or even if it was the Pope in history. Man and woman join together in a sacrament, and it needs to be, both of them have to have free will and have a mature consent to the sacrament. You cannot get married in the Catholic Church if you're being forced to. You can go through the ceremony, but the Catholic Church sacrament is not valid if it's not done in free will. And that means that you're not inhibited by anything. So, for example, if you've had something to drink before your wedding, if you're inhibited by the use of drugs, anything like that, when making the marriage decision, that invalidates the sacrament. I once did a wedding and walked into the sacristy, and there was a young man and his dad, the groom and his dad, they had a bottle of Jack Daniels in their hand, and they said, Father, would you like a drink before the wedding? I said, no, and if you take one more sip, I'm not doing the wedding. They were amazed that they couldn't have a drink before the wedding, and I thought to myself, these people don't know what's going on. You can't be inhibited by alcohol or drugs and have a valid sacrament. So I told them to put the bottle away, and when they said, okay, and they set it down, I grabbed it and put it in the safe. They weren't happy with me, but hopefully that marriage will last now instead of being based on Jack Daniels. I like to tell people, do not invite Jack to the wedding. He can go to the reception, but I don't want to see him in church. It's a sacrament, which means that it's a covenant relationship. Now, a covenant is not a contract. In the Old Testament, God makes a covenant with his people. A covenant is an unbreakable bond. A covenant, which is a natural covenant, is the covenant between a mother and her child. No matter what happens, the child is always that woman's child, and the mother is always the woman's mother. It's an unbreakable bond of love, and that's what God has with us and wants us to have when we enter into matrimony. It's not a contract in that it's not something that's temporary. It is open to God's love, and it is open to children, first by natural birth or even by adoption. That an annulment, a matrimony, a marriage, a true marriage is done in the eyes of God, and it's blessed by the church. Now, when the church blesses something, it doesn't add so much anything to it as it recognizes the goodness of the people or the thing there and challenges it to grow. Now, that doesn't work with rosaries and other things that are religious articles that are blessed, but with people who are blessed. I once had an incident where a man and woman asked me if I would bless their son. He was in the Marine Corps and he was going over to Afghanistan, I believe. And there he stood with no hair on his head, and they wanted me to give him a blessing. And I said, I will only give him a blessing if you do. They looked at me like, what? And I said, bring him over here. So they did. They were a Hispanic family, so he came over and I said, okay, you guys give him a blessing first. And they looked at me and I said, okay, what I want you to do is tell him how much you love him and tell him how good he is and how much he means to you. And his mother started off. She just went on and raved about how wonderful he was, how much she loved him and gave him a kiss. And I looked at the dad and I said, your turn. And he said, oh, she already said it all. I said, no, you tell him you love him. Oh, she already said it. Okay, well, if you don't want to tell him you love him, then that's the end of the blessing for today. The blessing has to come from parents before it comes from the priest. And he looked at me and he says, you're kidding. I said, no, you tell him you love him and what you think of him right now, or I'm not going to bless him either. And he looked at me and he says, okay. And he said, I love you, son, And then it started, the dam was burst. It started coming out, and they ended up hugging and crying. It was a wonderful experience. I looked at his little sister who was there too, and I said, okay, I'm going to let you off the hook. And she goes, I love you. But it was a wonderful experience. I blessed the young man. The blessing didn't add anything to him except for it challenged the love and goodness that was already there to come out. And that's a good thing. That's the same thing that is happening in the blessing of a marriage. The young couple marries each other. I've had people say, Father, would you marry us? And I'll say, no, you have to marry each other. And I laugh. A matrimony is a covenant bond between those two people. The priest is only there as the witness of the sacrament that they are doing. I don't do the sacrament of marriage. I witness the sacrament of marriage. And that sacramental marriage is a bond that lasts forever. An annulment is not a dissolution of marriage. An annulment is the recognition of the Catholic Church that there was no real sacramental marriage from the beginning, that there was some kind of an impediment to begin with. The person was immature, they got married against the law of the church in some way. So I'm going to talk about different kinds of annulments that there are in the Catholic Church. First thing is, if you're going to apply for annulment, you already need to be legally divorced. We can't start annulments unless there's already a divorce finalized through the courts. If you're thinking about an annulment and it's not something that you wanted to do, you didn't want a divorce, but it just happened to you, don't feel guilty. People have told me that they can't receive communion anymore because their husband or their wife divorced them. I'll say, well, are you married again to somebody else? And they'll say, no. I said, go ahead and receive communion. Divorce is not the problem. We don't recognize divorce. It's divorce and remarriage in the Catholic Church, or divorce and remarriage outside of the church that keeps you from receiving communion. So there are different kinds of annulments. The first kind is what we call a lack of form annulment. It means that a Catholic person was not married according to the law of the Catholic Church. A Catholic baptized person was married outside the church somehow. So let's say Tom is a baptized Catholic, and he doesn't know his Catholic faith very well, or maybe he does, and he just does something crazy and goes and marries a young lady. They run off to Las Vegas, and they, quote, get married in the chapel of the Shiny Penny in Las Vegas. He comes back, and the young lady divorces him 2 weeks later, and he comes to the priest and says, I need an annulment. So all we have to do there is prove that he was not married in the Catholic Church, or reverse it, and it's the woman needing an annulment, whatever. But it's a Catholic person who's married outside the church illegally. Now, I've witnessed a marriage in a Protestant church because the bride was Methodist and the groom was Catholic, and her dad was a Methodist minister. So because their church was actually closer and more beautiful to their home, our church was kind of, well, our church is not really all that gorgeous. They wanted to have the wedding in the Methodist church. And so I got permission from the bishop, and I celebrated the witnessing of the marriage in the Methodist church. And they're legally married in the Catholic Church. Same thing can happen in a Jewish synagogue or in any sacred place with permission from the bishop. A priest can witness a marriage in another place. We cannot do, in our archdiocese and in many dioceses across the United States, we don't do outside weddings or weddings in other spaces unless it's an emergency situation where somebody's dying. We do a hospital or a sickbed wedding. But normally, in normal situations, in ordinary situations, only in a church or sacred space of some kind. The next is called a legamen, and this is the most difficult. A legamen annulment, let's see if I can explain this, is when we recognize that the person who the Catholic married was married before they married the Catholic, and so their marriage to the Catholic is invalid. Let's say Mary is a Catholic woman, and she does something crazy and marries Billy. Now, Billy was a non-practicing Protestant, and they get married in the Catholic Church, and he lies about being married in the Protestant church. We need to look at oh, wait a second, I've got this wrong. She wants to get married to Billy in the Catholic Church, but Billy's been married before to Anne. And Anne was married before to Steve. We have to look and see if if his marriage to his former spouse was actually legitimate in a Protestant or other kind of religious ceremony. And that's kind of hard to describe. The last kind of annulment is called the formal trial, and this is the most common save from the lack of form. Most people, when they're talking about an annulment, they were married in the Catholic Church and there was an impediment somewhere in their marriage. There was some reason why it was not a valid sacrament. And I'll talk about the different kinds of formal trials, and we'll talk about some questions that are commonly asked, like how about the children? What is the effects of children? What if you've decided, what if you're divorced and you don't have an annulment? Can you still receive Holy Communion? What do you do if you need what's called a formal trial annulment? What is the process? How much does an annulment cost? Is it expensive? Can't I just buy one? And we'll talk about those kinds of things. If you have questions or you want to make a comment, please don't hesitate to call if you'd like at 562-217-4799. I really like questions. I'm going to have to start giving prizes for questions, a free donut, or maybe a free Saint so-and-so's medal. I need to go down and order some medals. And if you call in with a question and I like it, or it's a good question, I'll send you a medal of your favorite saint or my favorite saint rather than yours. Maybe you could guess what my favorite saint is or who my favorite saints are. But if you'd like to ask a question about annulments or what is necessary to get married in the Catholic Church, it's 562-217-4799. It's 562-217-4799. We'll be going to a commercial break now, and we'll be right back.
Don't let the opportunity of a lifetime pass you by. We at Today's Realty and Loans are here to make your dreams become a reality. Rates are at a record low. Now is the time to act. Call us at 562-862-0777. Free pre-approvals and credit report when you mention Father John. Today's Realty and Loans is here to simplify the buying and selling process. Please call us at 562-862-0777. And don't forget to ask about our no closing cost loans. Lo podemos ayudar en su propio idioma para compra y venta de propiedades y refinanciamientos.
Juice, I heard you're at a party the other day and the DJ completely destroyed the party.
That's right, Pac-Man. I was checking out his skills. They were not there. Didn't know how to MC. Lighting sucked. And guess what? There was cables showing everywhere. What's up with that?
You know what, man? Cable management is really important. And when a DJ can't talk on the mic, what's the point? A DJ really has to know how to rock the party.
He needs to MC. He needs to take control of the party. So, folks, listen closely. If you're in the market for a DJ, if you have an upcoming wedding, quinceañera, and a birthday party, any kind of an event where the DJ will make the difference, make sure to check us out, escevents.com.
Computer repair done right. Have a virus? Is your computer too slow? Call us at 562-381-2702. Let our team handle it. We can get your computer back to normal, and with our $19.99 optimization package, your computer will be better than ever. Call 562-381-2702 or visit our website, pcsmartteam.com. Hey Juice, when was the last time you went swimming at a friend's house?
Just the other day. Why? What's up?
Well, the other day I went to my friend's house to go swimming, but it was all green, man.
Oh, I know exactly what you need. You need to go talk to my friend Chris Anderson over at Chris Anderson Pool and Spa. He can help you out with algae, filter problems, weekly cleanings, pretty much anything to do with pools and spas.
What's that number, bro?
Give him a call at 310-500-7439. Again, the number is 310-500-7439. Hey Pac-Man, I've got a big problem. This weekend is my brother's prom, but we can't afford to buy him a tux.
What you need to do is go see my friend over at Downey Rent-A-Tux. They've got great deals on a huge variety of outfits. Anytime I DJ a wedding or a quince, I go to Downey Rent-A-Tux and always get hooked up. So go check them out and mention EMX Radio and they'll hook you up too.
That sounds perfect. Where can I find them?
Go check them out at gotorent2tux.com. That is rent2tux.com.
Poor Ben is only 20 years old, but has the spine of a 7-year-old man. Ben tried medicine, acupuncture, physical therapy, and even other chiropractors. Now Ben, after only 6 weeks of care, is almost pain-free and is going back to the gym. A chiropractor is like a surgeon. You need to research and get references to see if they have a good set of hands. At the chiropractor office of Dr. Mariscal, we cater to everyone. And remember, by appointment or by chance. We're always glad to see you back. To set up an appointment, go to drbodyscom.com.
We're back talking about annulments and marriage in the Catholic Church. If you have a question, be sure to call us. I want to throw out a shout out to a couple of my buddies. One is Wild Bill for America. If you'd like to look him up on Facebook or on the net, he's got some very interesting videos. He and I talk occasionally, and he's an evangelical Christian and slightly conservative. You might detect a tiny bit of conservatism in what he has to say. Not that I endorse conservative political views in public. Another shout out I'd like to do is to my buddy Joseph Haddad at Haddad Insurance Agency in Downey. If you need home, auto, life, or business workman's compensation insurance, be sure to give Joseph a call at 800-588-8113. That's 800-588-8113. We're talking this evening about annulments and marriage. We've talked about marriage a little bit already in the Catholic Church and annulments. And we're up to the point where we're talking about what's called a formal trial annulment. This takes a lot of work by the petitioner, the person who applies for the annulment. You go and see the priest, and he interviews you and explains what an annulment is, and I've done a little bit of that already this evening. Again, an annulment is the recognition that there was no valid Catholic or valid marriage to begin with. No valid marriage to begin with. It's not a dissolution of marriage or a dissolving of marriage. It's the recognition that there was never really a valid sacramental marriage to begin with. And this can be for a number of reasons. And the priest will explain, basically, he'll ask you some questions and explain what you need to do. You'll need a copy of your baptismal certificate, a copy of your marriage certificate from the church you were married in, the place where you were married, the address, and so forth. And then you'll need a copy of your formal statement of divorce from your state, wherever you got divorced. At that point, then the priest will give you a list of questions. In the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, for example, I think there are 64 questions that you need to answer. And then you need to sit down at a computer and get ready, because it often turns into a very emotional thing, going back over the history of your marriage, over the reasons for the divorce, over the reasons why you would like to apply for an annulment. And you need at least two witnesses, people who knew you from the very beginning of your marriage. It could be relatives or friends, best man, maid of honor, who knew you at the time and would have recognized some of the faults and defects in the marriage to begin with. The church, in seeking, in gathering this information, is not seeking to lay blame on one person or the other. There's not a fault in the person that we're looking for to blame. We're looking for is there a defect in intent or defect in understanding, something about the marriage that was not sacramental from the beginning. So in answering the questions, that's what the church is looking for. There are lots of different reasons why there might be a formal trial annulment granted. And one would be lack of maturity. People enter into a marriage without understanding what marriage was. They thought they knew at the time, and they didn't really understand what marriage was all about. They didn't understand what the other person was all about. They were so immature they couldn't see the real character of the other person. Or perhaps it's not just not lack of maturity. Perhaps one of the spouses hid something on purpose from a spouse in order to get married. For example, I'm going to make up some names here. Tom and Sue get married, and Tom tells his best man in secret that the only reason he's marrying Sue is because Sue's dad owns the company that he works for, and he hopes for an advance. The best man said, "Is that the only reason?" He says, "Well, she's pretty, but really I want to get ahead in the company." That's grounds for an annulment, because the reason he's marrying her is not out of respect and love. It's for advancement in a company. That's grounds for an annulment. Or let's twist it around the other way. Sue is going to marry Tom, and she never reveals to him that she's had a boyfriend up until 3 weeks before she met him. She never tells him that she had a very serious relationship. She keeps that secret. It's something very important about her that she never revealed to her spouse. She's kept something very important secret about her. That's grounds for annulment. Or Tom marries Sue, and Sue discovers a year later that he's been using drugs. He's been using drugs from the very beginning, and she doesn't know it. And it could be prescription drugs, it could be anything else. It's something very important that he should have told her. Or the person has a disease, and they keep that disease from their spouse. If they're hiding something very important about themselves, then it's grounds for an annulment. Now, if it's something unimportant, like when I was a kid, I got in a fight before school. That's nothing really important. It's not a character or a physical thing that's important in the marriage. But if they're actually hiding something that's important, it's important that they realize that and go ahead with filing for an annulment based on not knowing the spouse. How much does an annulment cost? Is it expensive? Most of the time, the annulment doesn't cost a thing. There's a donation that's required or given to pay for the secretarial costs of the people down in the Chancery office who work on annulments. There's a lot of paperwork involved. There's mailing. There's letters to be written. And in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, the usual donation is $150 to process the annulment. If you can't pay that, they'll process the annulment anyway. But they do ask for that donation, but only after the annulment is granted. There is a donation to send it in. I think in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, it's $50 to send it in to start the paperwork and so forth. But it's not what you'd call an expensive proposition as opposed to a divorce or even what a lot of people spend on their wedding reception. People have asked me, can't I just buy an annulment? No. The church does not sell annulments or dissolve or talk about sacraments for sale. I guess in the old days, people would say, how much does a first communion or a wedding cost? And people do still ask those kinds of things, but the proper reply is the normal donation is so forth. Why do powerful and rich people get annulments and the poor don't? Not true. I've seen people with absolutely no money at all get annulments, and I know of very wealthy people who could not get an annulment. I know there's a lot of speculation that politicians in the past have just gotten an annulment because they knew somebody, something like that. That's not how the church works. That's just gossip. And I don't believe that the church grants annulments these days. Now, it may have happened in the past, but I don't believe that the church grants annulments in the last 100, 200 years based on you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or a donation. What if my spouse gets an annulment without my permission? An annulment is not a permission kind of thing. It's a look into the relationship to see if there was a sacramental marriage from the beginning. Some people have also asked me, what if my spouse gets an annulment and I don't know about it? You will know about it. The church will contact you if you've disappeared. Let's say you've gone to Antarctica and you're in I guess they don't have igloos down there. They have something else. You're working in Antarctica and there's no way to contact you for 3 or 4 years. The church may process the annulment, but they will try their best to contact you and tell you that you have been granted an annulment in the Catholic Church. Another question, do I need an annulment in the Catholic Church if my former spouse is deceased? No. We recognize marriage as lasting until one of the spouses is deceased, and then the other person is free to marry again if they're capable. So if your former spouse is deceased, you do not need an annulment. I've had people say that they can't receive communion in the Catholic Church because they got divorced. And I'll say, well, is your former spouse deceased? And they'll say, yes. And I'll say, well, you can receive communion. They'll say, no, I can't. And I'll say, yes, you can. And I'll have a little argument with them sometimes, trying to convince them that the marriage ends when one of the spouses dies. I've had pretty good success, except for with real stubborn folks who don't want to believe me, that if your former spouse has died, you're no longer bound in that marriage. If you choose not to get married, that's fine, but you are free to marry if you like. There are a lot of misunderstandings about annulments. If you've got any questions or comments about annulments or anything else, if you'd like to tell a little story about your experience or make a comment about annulments or ask a question, call 217 4799. That's 562 217 4799. This week, I told a little story at Mass, and I thought I'd share it with you this evening, too. It's about people who are, well, I'll tell the story, and I'll let you guess as to what it's really about. A woman is thinking she's going to be late for her flight, and she rushes into the airport. She gets through the checkpoints and looks up on the board and realizes her flight is delayed for an hour. A little frustrated and realizing she's hungry, she walks into one of the little shops and picks up a bag of cookies and a book, and walks over and plops down on a chair to wait. She opens her book and starts to read, and without really thinking too much about it, she reaches into the bag of cookies and takes a bite of the first cookie. Gosh, she thought, I thought I bought chocolate chip, and this is lemon. Oh well. She continues to munch on her cookies and then notices the man next to her reaches into the cookie bag too and takes a cookie. She's a little upset, but she continues to try to read her book, and she takes another cookie. He takes another cookie too. Now she's giving him that glare of peace look. What do you think you're doing? But she decides not to say anything because she doesn't want trouble. It continues like this for a few minutes, her reaching into the bag and him reaching into the bag, she glaring and him smiling. She doesn't understand. He's very rude. Finally, she reaches into the bag, and there's only one cookie left. He reaches into the bag and grabs it. He breaks it in half and gives her half of the cookie with a smile. Now she's furious. She jumps up, boards her plane, plops down on her seat, and thinks how rude that man was. She opens her purse and pulls out her book and finds the bag of chocolate chip cookies that she bought underneath. What's that story really about? What's it really about? Call in 562-217-4799 if you know what the story is really about. If you have a question or a comment about annulments or Catholic marriage, it's 562-217-4799.
Don't let the opportunity of a lifetime pass you by. We at Today's Realty and Loans are here to make your dreams become a reality. Rates are at a record low. Now is the time to act. Call us at 562-862-0777. Free pre-approvals and credit report when you mention Father John. Today's Realty and Loans is here to simplify the buying and selling process. Please call us at 562-862-0777. And don't forget to ask about our no closing cost loans. Lo podemos ayudar en su propio idioma para compra y venta de propiedades y refinanciamiento.
Juice, I heard you were at a party the other day and the DJ completely destroyed the party.
That's right, Pac-Man. I was checking out his skills. They were not there. Didn't know how to MC. Lighting sucked. And guess what? There was cables showing everywhere. What the with that?
You know what, man? Cable management is really important. And when a DJ can't talk on the mic, what's the point? A DJ really has to know how to rock the party.
He needs to MC. He needs to take control of the party. So, folks, listen closely. If you're in the market for a DJ, if you have an upcoming wedding, quinceañera, birthday party, any kind of an event where the DJ will make the difference, make sure to check us out, escevents.com.
Computer repair done right. Have a virus? Is your computer too slow? Call us at 562-381-2702. Let our team handle it. We can get your computer back to normal, and with our $19.99 optimization package, your computer will be better than ever. Call 562-381-2702 or visit our website, pcsmartteam.com. Hey Juice, when was the last time you went swimming at a friend's house?
Just the other day. Why? What's up?
Well, the other day I went to my friend's house to go swimming, but it was all green, man.
Oh, I know exactly what you need. You need to go talk to my friend Chris Anderson over at Chris Anderson Pool and Spa. He can help you out with algae, filter problems, weekly cleanings, pretty much anything to do with pools and spas.
What's that number, bro?
Give him a call at 310-500-7439. Again, the number is 310-500-7439. Hey, Pac-Man. I've got a big problem. This weekend is my brother's prom, but we can't afford to buy him a tux.
What you need to do is go see my friend over at Downey Brandon Tux. They've got great deals on a huge variety of outfits. Anytime I DJ a wedding or a quince, I go to Downey Rent-A-Tux and always get hooked up. So go check them out and mention email Mix Radio and they'll hook you up too.
That sounds perfect. Where can I find them?
Go check them out at go2rentatux.com. That is go, the number 2, rentatux.com.
Poor Ben is only 20 years old, but has the spine of a 7-year-old man. Ben tried medicine, acupuncture, physical therapy, and even other chiropractors. Now, Ben, after only 6 weeks of care, is almost pain-free and is going back to the gym. A chiropractor is like a surgeon. You need to research and get references to see if they have a good set of hands. At the chiropractor office of Dr. Mariscal, we cater to everyone. And remember, by appointment or by chance, we're always glad to see you back. To set up an appointment, go to drmariscal.com.
Welcome back. We're talking about marriages and annulments. And if you know the answer to the question about the story, what is it really about, please give us a call at 562-217-4799. That's 562-217-4799. A couple of stories about marriages that I've experienced that taught me some lessons about Catholic marriage. I knew it by book, but I've done lots of weddings, probably 7,000 to 10,000 weddings in my career as a priest, and I've seen all kinds of weddings, and some of the most touching moments in a wedding are when there are mistakes. Is when somebody goofs. The flower girl, or the flower girl throws flowers at somebody. The ring bearer runs and they have to change him or chase him, or maybe they have to change him too. Who knows? The mistakes at the beginning of a wedding allow people to relax, and it turns from being a formal event that promises to be boring into a family event in which there's love and some good things happening. One of my favorite weddings was done in Ventura, California. I was in a parish that was on the edge of Ventura, and there were a lot of farm workers around, and a young couple wanted to get married. They were both very, very poor. She worked in a Motel 6 as a housekeeper, and he worked picking lettuce and strawberries. They didn't have any money at all, and they were very concerned that it was going to be too expensive. So I helped them plan their wedding, and it turned out like this. She showed up in a dress that her mother had made because they could not afford a wedding dress. They could not afford flowers, so some people brought some from their gardens in vases. He could not afford a tuxedo, of course, so he wore a pair of jeans, and somebody bought him a little white shirt from a drugstore. All of that made no difference except to add to the love and goodness of that wedding. They were terribly in love, and their donation to the church was a flat of strawberries from his work. They had their reception on our school picnic tables outside the church, and somebody brought a boombox, other people brought homemade Mexican food, and they had a wonderful time. It was a wonderful reception. I stayed through the whole thing. It was great. It was a wonderful time. I've had lots of experiences of weddings where there were just some wonderful things that happened during the wedding. My least favorite weddings are the very, very formal weddings where nobody smiles. I've done weddings where I was actually angry at the people taking photographs. They were trying to climb into the sanctuary and upstage the wedding, literally. I did a wedding at my current parish several years ago. The bride was an hour and 45 minutes late for her own wedding. It was horrible. The groom was terribly embarrassed. The guests at the wedding were telling him, "Don't marry her." It was a very sad situation. I actually had to write in, we keep records of each wedding, each marriage that we do, and I had to write in the marriage record book that I was very uncertain about this wedding and almost did not do it because she was so rude. She was terribly rude. So the basis of a wedding, the basis of a marriage is not the externals, the dress and the flowers and the reception. The basis is real love. Now, people have asked, somebody asked during the break, if I'm married outside the church, is that valid? Somebody said, I got married through the court, but I haven't got married through the church yet. They're Catholic. Nope, it's not valid in the eyes of the church until you're married in the church. People, especially from different countries where they get married at the court and in the church in two different ceremonies, they're sometimes confused about that. We do not recognize a court marriage or a marriage outside the church for Catholics. For anybody else, if they're Methodists or Episcopalians or Jewish or atheists, they can get married wherever they like, and we don't say that's an invalid marriage. That's up to them. But for Catholics, you must be married in the Catholic Church, or what people say will say through the Catholic Church, in order to be married validly in the Catholic Church. Otherwise, it's not recognized, and we don't recognize that you're married, and the benefits and all those kinds of things would go with that. You're not sacramentally married in the church. Catholics who are married and they are told they can't annul their marriage, what can they do? It depends on what the reason was they were told they can't annul the marriage. I've known priests that just didn't feel like making out the paperwork for an annulment, and so they said, I can't help you. It's time to go to another priest and find a priest that will help you to apply for a marriage, for an annulment. If you have applied for an annulment and were turned down, maybe it's time to look at your marriage again. Is it really good that you are divorced? Is there any chance of reconciling there? And if there isn't, then are you willing to sacrifice your will to get married to somebody else for the benefit of what God wants for you? Annulment is given because of lack of love on either side. How do they determine that? Actually, an annulment isn't because of lack of love. There's a lot of reasons for an annulment, and lack of love might be one of them. They would determine that by asking, did you love your partner from the very beginning? And if the person admits it, no, I didn't really love her, or there's a witness who could say, I know that he or she didn't love the person because they told me, and if there's good evidence to that, then an annulment would be granted on the basis that they didn't love. But there are other reasons for granting an annulment: lack of commitment, lack of discretion, lack of maturity, and things like that. My voice is going out. I got a little cold. Am I allowed to sleep with my partner if we are in the stages of getting our marriage annulled? Well, that's a kind of a wild question. Am I allowed to sleep with my partner? Yes, if you only sleep. That includes snoring, pajamas, pillows. If you fall asleep in the same room as your partner, it's fine. I don't think that's what you mean, though, is it? If you're in the stages of annulment, getting your marriage annulled, why would you want to sleep, quote, sleep with that person? You're allowed to, but why would you want to? It's fun. Maybe your definition of fun is a little self-humiliating, is a little self-deprecating, isn't good for you. Sleeping with somebody you're getting in an annulment with is kind of like kissing the person you're having a fight with in the middle of the fight. It's a little weird. I would not recommend it. It's hurtful in the long run. Now, it might be fun momentarily, but I think in the long run, it's not good for you. Is there a need for increased spiritual direction, perhaps to replace the proliferation of therapists? This person is an intellectual. I think I know who this is. Should we not be able to go to pastoral counseling rather than mental health counseling? Do you see a desire for that service? I think this is related to annulments in a way, in that people often come to the priest to say, to get it off their chest why they need an annulment, but for other things too. I think there are therapists that are really wonderful therapists. I knew a psychiatrist in Ventura. He's retired now, Dr. Ralph Armstrong, and he was absolutely wonderful. He was a Catholic psychiatrist who did not believe in drug therapy unless it was absolutely necessary, and used Christian principles in his therapy, principles that were very practical. I did an internship with him and learned lots from Dr. Ralph, especially in the area of panic and fear disorders, and in the area of talking with people about really enjoying who they are. You know, a lot of folks come to counseling thinking that they're absolutely weird because they have this or that thought. And lots of times they're having a normal thought, and that they think that they're really weird. And allowing the person to see that they're not absolutely abnormal and absolutely crazy. They're fairly normal and need to deal with the problem, and to do so with joy. I learned a lot from him, but I know that there are therapists who will tell people some pretty odd things or just recommend drugs and not help the person at all. So I think pastoral counseling, whether it's from a psychiatrist who is pastoral in his approach, or for a priest who knows what he's doing, would be excellent. There are sisters and other people in Catholic ministries and in Catholic professions, or Catholics in professions, who do counseling in a pastoral way. And I think there's a real need for that, because you never know what you're going to get when walking into a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a counselor. They may have a completely different viewpoint. I know I did an internship at a mental hospital when I was in the seminary, and I saw some counselors who said some pretty crazy things to people, and I would not recommend going to that person for anything. But there are others that are really good. So that's question one, or the first part of Greg's question. Second part would be, would the availability of spiritual direction rather than therapy result in fewer divorces? I think it might. I think there are therapists who automatically think if you've got a problem in your marriage, move on. They don't see marriage as a sacrament. They see marriage as a contract that is easily broken, and that it should be moved on. If you're in any pain whatsoever, get out of the pain. And I see that in psychiatrists who prescribe pain medication too readily, depression medication too readily, nerve medication too readily, and counselors or therapists who prescribe getting out of a bad relationship. They call it a bad relationship, even if there is love there and they're just going through temporary problems. I did some counseling with a young couple several years ago, and they were pretty sure that they needed to get divorced and they needed to move on. And I sat and talked with them for quite some time, and they discovered that they really loved each other in that counseling. And it was a wonderful experience working with them. One of the things that I did was, when sitting with them, I used a little tough love because they came into my office the first time and they started to argue in front of me. And I sat there and I tried to say, you know, we need to talk rather than argue. And they continued to argue, and I stood up and walked over to the door, shut off the lights, started to leave. They said, where are you going? And I said, well, if you've just come here to argue, you don't need me. And they looked at me and, well, you're supposed to help us. I said, I can't. You won't let me get in a word edgewise. So you got to take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth for a minute and listen. And they looked at me like, whoa. I said, if you listen to one another here, we might be able to salvage the love you had for each other. You did used to love each other, right? They said, yes. And so we sat and talked for, I think it was 3 or 4 sessions. They're still together. I blessed their marriage in the church not long ago, and it was wonderful. They loved each other, and they were fighting for their own point of view rather than fighting for their marriage, thinking if that other person would only listen to me, this would be okay. And what I needed to teach them, what they needed to learn was, if they'd only listen to each other, it'd be okay. How long does it take to process an annulment? It depends on what kind. A lack of form annulment is sometimes granted within a week. Needs to be proved that it was a Catholic who got married outside of the church. Formal trial annulment sometimes takes 6 months, a year, 2 years. It depends on how long it takes for the respondent and the witnesses to answer the questions that the Catholic Church sends them. The church sends them questionnaires too. Is there any way to speed it up? Yes. When you choose the people who you're going to use to testify on your behalf, choose people who will actually accomplish things. They won't take the questions and put them on their desk and let them sit. They'll actually answer them and send them in. There's no way to speed up the archdiocese because the archdiocese does it as fast as possible to the diocese. There's only one way to speed up the annulment process, and that's to choose petitioners who will actually answer the questions and send them in. Give them an envelope, give them a stamp, tell them to do their job. And if they're good friends, you'll be able to do that. In closing this evening, I'd like to thank all of you for listening. If you have any comments or questions, that you still have, please feel free to put those on my Facebook page if you know that. Videos will be on YouTube in case you missed either this session or any other session. Tell your friends about our program, and I will be seeing you soon. Next Tuesday, we'll be back at 6:30 p.m. as usual here on EMIX Radio. God bless you and good night.
Don't let the opportunity of a lifetime pass you by. We at Today's Realty and Loans are here to make your dreams become a reality. Rates are at a record low. Now is the time to act. Call us at 562-862-0777. Free pre-approvals and credit report when you mention Father John. Today's Realty and Loans is here to simplify the buying and selling process. Please call us at 562-862-0777. And don't forget to ask about our no closing cost loans. Lo podemos ayudar en su propio idioma para compra y venta de propiedades y refinanciamientos.
Juice, I heard you were at a party the other day and the DJ completely destroyed the party.
That's right, Pac-Man. I was checking out his skills. They were not there. Didn't know how to MC. Lighting sucked. And guess what? There was cables showing everywhere. What's up with that?
You know what, man? Cable management is really important. And when a DJ can't talk on the mic, what's the point? A DJ really has to know how to rock the party.
He needs to MC. He needs to take control of the party. So, folks, listen closely. If you're in the market for a DJ, if you have an upcoming wedding, quinceañera, birthday party, any kind of an event where the DJ will make the difference, make sure to check us out, escevents.com.
Computer repair done right. Have a virus? Is your computer too slow? Call us at 562-381-2702. Let our team handle it. We can get your computer back to normal, and with our $19.99 optimization package, your computer will be better than ever. Call 562-381-2702 or visit our website, pcsmartteam.com. Hey Juice, when was the last time you went swimming at a friend's house?
Just the other day. Why? What's up?
Well, the other day I went to my friend's house to go swimming, but it was all green, man.
Oh, I know exactly what you need. You need to go talk to my friend Chris Anderson over at Chris Anderson Pool and Spa. He can help you out with algae, filter problems, weekly cleanings, pretty much anything to do with pools and spas.
What's that number, bro?
Give him a call at 310-500-7439. Again, the number is 310-500-7439. Hey Pac-Man, I've got a big problem. This weekend is my brother's prom, but we can't afford to buy him a tux.
What you need to do is go see my friend over at Downey Brenna Tux. They've got great deals on a huge variety of outfits. Anytime I DJ a wedding or a quince, I go to Downey Brenna Tux and always get hooked up. So go check them out and mention EMIX Radio and they'll hook you up too.
That sounds perfect. Where can I find them?
Go check them out at go2rentatux.com. That is rentatux.com.
Poor Ben is only 20 years old, but has the spine of a 7-year-old man. Ben tried medicine, acupuncture, physical therapy, and even other chiropractors. Now, Ben, after only 6 weeks of care, is almost pain-free and is going back to the gym. A chiropractor is like a surgeon. You need to research and get references to see if they have a good set of hands. At the chiropractor office of Dr. Mariscal, we cater to everyone. And remember, by appointment or by chance, we're always glad to see you back. To set up an appointment, go to drmariscal.com.